Look at this shape assembling itself from chaos into a sleek, perfectly structured sphere. This is what happens when you take raw, unfocused thought and forge it into a dedicated tool. In chaos magic, we call this a servitor, a semi-autonomous thought form designed to handle specific tasks on your behalf. Think of a servitor as a piece of custom software written specifically for your own consciousness. You program it to execute an assignment in the background, freeing up your mental bandwidth for other operations. By the end of this video, we will walk through the exact steps to design, build, and launch your own specialized entity to complete a specific real-world task. To start, you only need a few basic tools. Grab a pen and some paper. You might also want a physical object, like a small stone or piece of wood, to act as an optional housing. Most importantly, you need a tangible problem that needs solving. Taking a problem out of your head and assigning it to an external construct forces you to clarify your intentions. It takes your messy, internal psychological energy and structures it into a precise external tool with a single objective. Step 1 is drafting the blueprint. You must strictly define your entity's parameters before you draw a single line. Skipping this planning phase and winging it results in an unpredictable and unmanageable thought form. Look at this layout to see why specificity matters. On the left, a vague instruction like "protect me" leaves too much room for interpretation. The servitor might decide the best way to protect you is to isolate you entirely. On the right, a hyper-specific command: ward this bedroom against intrusion. This gives the entity a clear, measurable job with absolute boundaries. Next, you have to establish the entity's lifespan. You need to decide right now if this servitor will exist for a single day, until a specific project is finished, or if it will be a long-term entity you call on indefinitely. This brings us to the most critical safety feature of your blueprint, visualized here by the stark termination node at the end of this lifecycle flowchart. You must build in a kill switch, a simple, foolproof, pre-planned action that instantly destroys the entity. This could be burning its sigil or speaking a specific phrase. Establishing these hard boundaries from day one prevents what practitioners call the Frankenstein effect. Without a strict job, lifespan, and kill switch, an undefined tool can warp into a parasitic thought form that drains your energy without delivering results. With the blueprint finished, step 2 is building the vessel. This is where we move from abstract planning into creating a concrete interface that you can actually interact with. First, give the servitor a name.
It needs to be unique and evocative, acting as your primary command word. Choose a name you would never accidentally say in normal conversation, so you avoid triggering the entity by mistake. Next, watch this animation to see how we create the entity's seal. We take the servitor's unique name and its core purpose, overlap the letters, and watch as they condense down into a single, stark geometric glyph. This completed seal serves as the entity's energetic signature. Moving forward, it acts as the primary control panel you will use to focus your intent and issue commands.
You can also assign the servitor a physical home, giving it an anchor, like a specific crystal, a small statue, or a wooden box, gives the construct a defined resting place when it's inactive, making it easier to manage. Keep in mind, the physical object and the drawn seal are not the servitor itself. They simply form the user interface required to securely command the abstract concept you've built. Step 3 is the animation phase. Up until now, you've only made plans and drawings. To bring the servitor online, you have to provide an intense psychological spark. This requires entering a state of gnosis, a peak moment of absolute, single-minded focus. You can reach this through an excitatory method, like intense physical exertion, or an inhibitory method, like deep meditation. Notice how the physical action grounds the ritual here. You hold the housing object or gaze steadily at your drawn seal. As you reach that peak state of gnosis and the lighting shifts, you break the silence and chant the servitor's name. At the climax of the ritual, pour your willpower directly into the vessel. Visualize the entity snapping into its finalized form, coming online, and immediately issue its very first command, telling it to go execute the job you assigned in the blueprint. Successfully launching the concept out of your mind and into perceived reality is the dividing line. This action separates an active, working magical operation from passive daydreaming. Now that the servitor is active, step 4 is lifecycle management. Your immediate priority is to verify that the entity is actually functioning. To rule out confirmation bias, assign it a simple, low-stakes test task first. Command it to cause a specific, highly unusual phrase to be spoken in your presence within the next 48 hours. If it succeeds, you know the connection is established. Throughout its lifespan, the servitor requires energy to work. The standard method is to feed the entity regularly by giving it your focused attention, looking at its seal and chanting its name for a few minutes each day. Alternatively, you can design dormant entities. These thought forms sit completely inactive until you call on them, pulling the necessary energy from your mental reserves only at the exact moment they perform their assigned task. When the servitor's overall job is completely finished, you must execute the final step of its life cycle. Watch this termination protocol in action as the card rapidly ignites. You trigger the pre-planned kill switch to dissolve the construct entirely and formally close the operation. If you forget to banish an entity after its task is complete, it will continue to wander autonomously. Without a purpose, these constructs degrade, trying to execute their old functions inappropriately and becoming a slow parasitic drain on your energy. Because a servitor is built directly from the raw material of your own mind, it acts as a perfect mirror. By observing where it succeeds and where it fails, you get a direct look at your own hidden strengths and psychological blind spots. Now take your pen, outline your blueprint, launch your first test servitor, and report your verifiable results in the comments below.